If you're an employee, labor law applies to you. And most of us just don't know a lot about labor law. We don't know how to apply it. We don't know our rights. We don't know our responsibilities. And that's really a dangerous place to be. Hi guys, welcome to Mamolao. Here we are again, standing on legal business. Today we are going to discuss the labor relations, right? We're going to discuss labor law and all things labor law. I know it's a very broad topic. So if you have other topics within the labor law that you want to discuss, by all means, please put it on the chat for me. And then we've invited an esteemed attorney in our midst. But before I talk about that, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Make sure that you also follow us on our social media channels. We're on TikTok and we're on Instagram at therealmamolao. So go ahead and follow us there. So today we've invited an esteemed attorney who is very well versed in labor law. And she is going to teach us about certain aspects of the law. Her name is Lindoguhle Magagula. She's an employment law specialist, and she has dealt with a variety of employment-related matters, including internal disciplinary hearings, CCMA and labor court matters, conducting and investigations in the workplace, drafting and reviewing employment contracts, and advising clients on employment-related issues. So, welcome, Lindoguhle.
Thank you.
What a beautiful name.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Thank you.
So, I really want us to discuss certain aspects of labor law. I mean, most of us as employees, we are in some way or another, affected by labor law at some point, right? If you're an employee, labor law applies to you. And most of us just don't know a lot about labor law. We don't know how to apply it. We don't know our rights. We don't know our responsibilities. And that's really a dangerous place to be. So as Mamolao, we really wanted to bring in this subject matter so that we can be able to teach people around their relationship with labor law, right? So I'm going to get straight into it. And thank you so much for joining us. It's really, really refreshing.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to give an example, right?
Okay.
Because I think when we give an example, it's more understandable. Somebody can actually follow, right? So we have Paul Diretlo, who works at a company and they sell skincare products. Paul is an admin manager in the company and has been there for 9 years. Since COVID, he works hybrid, which means he works from home sometimes and sometimes he works from the office. He reports to an admin senior manager who has been there for 4 years. And Paul and his manager don't get along. The manager gives him a hard time unnecessarily. And in front of people, he's a nice person, but behind closed doors, he's really difficult to work with. So he makes Paul do work that he's not supposed to do. He keeps changing the KPIs, the key performance indicators, during the year when it suits him. And this really frustrates Paul. When Paul needs to attend the LGBTQIA plus meetings because he's part of the committee, the senior manager refuses and tells him about deadlines that were never there previously. So when Paul is on sick leave, he's expected by the senior manager to work. Wow. When he doesn't answer his email, the senior sends him a WhatsApp asking him to check his emails. And when he's working from home, the senior manager micromanages him. So during the year-end review, which is bonus time, Paul's manager tells him he's marking him down because he took too much sick leave and because he's always in non-work related meetings. So Paul would like to take this up to HR because now the manager is really going too far. So this is a scenario that, any employee can really experience in one way or another, Sleep.
Yeah.
And so there are very many aspects in that story. And I think it's also important to note at this point that this is Paul's version of events, right? We haven't heard from his manager what his manager's version of events is. So that's really a really important distinction to make, that we only have one side of the story for now, right? But be that as it may, I just need to understand on behalf of Paul, or we need to understand with Paul, what are his rights in terms of labor law? So maybe you can take us a little bit about what is the Labor Relations Act? We've heard about the Labor Relations Act. We've heard about the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. How does that apply to Paul at this point?
Okay. So let me just take a step back, right? So we have the Constitution, and Section 23 of the Constitution provides that everyone has the right to fair labor practices. Now, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which you mentioned, and the Labor Relations Act were enacted in order to give effect to this right. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act requires an employer to provide their employees with written particulars of employment, including the occupation of the employee or a brief description of the work that the employee is employed to do. And if this work changes, then the written particulars of employment must be revised to reflect the change, and the employee must be provided with the amended written particulars of employment. Now, importantly, an employer cannot unilaterally amend terms and conditions of employment. So in this scenario, Paul cannot be required to do work that he was not employed to do in the first place without his consent. And also, you mentioned something about Paul being required to work while he's sick.
Yeah.
So in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, Paul is entitled to sick leave in terms of as set out in the Act. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then with regards to the Labor Relations Act, so that sets out what Paul can do, the action that he can take in the event that he's not satisfied with the conduct of his employer.
Oh, brilliant. And so what is how does the company policies then come into play? Because there's company policies and then there's the law that we've just explained, right? So how do those two then meet?
So a company will have policies which have rules and regulations for that particular company. So for the employees in that particular company. But the policies should really not differ from or should not contradict what is set out in the legislation.
Okay.
So although there are internal policies which apply to the employees in a particular company, but they should not contradict what the law says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So in this scenario, what does Paul need to think about and do before going to HR, right? Because you can imagine that now you're about to start something. You're Paul and you're about to start something. So when you go in that direction, it takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of guts, and it probably Paul has been going through a little bit of stress around bringing this up, right? But it's time, he's going to bring it up, and now he's at a point where he really needs to do something about it so that he doesn't keep, being in this position where he's uncomfortable, he's unhappy, and just things are just not going his way, right?
Yeah.
What does he need to do? Like, how does he gear up and prepare for actually bringing this up with HR?
So he will obviously have emails from his employer or from his supervisor, where his supervisors instructs and gives him instructions on what to do, right? So he can gather all those emails, he can gather the relevant documents, basically gathering the facts and the evidence, so that when he eventually takes this up to HR, he has all the evidence of what transpired. But before he even goes to HR, what he can do is he can try to bring the issues up with his supervisor and just discuss the issues that he has. Because like you said, this is only one side of the story. It's only Paul's side. So the supervisor might perhaps have a different thinking, or he might not even be aware of what's happening. So he can try to raise the issues with his supervisor, and then if this is not fruitful, then he can try to approach the supervisor's line manager. This could be the HOD, and raise those issues with that relevant person. And and after he has done that, then that person can then try to deal with the issues timelessly and fairly. And if then this is not helpful, then Paul can approach HR or the relevant department.
Okay, so basically he just needs to be professional about it, right?
Yes.
Hopefully everybody's really mature in the company,
Yeah.
and you can bring up an issue that you have without negative impact or negative consequences, right? Because that can also really be daunting for somebody bringing up an issue such as this.
Yeah.
So I think bringing it up professionally and informally with the manager himself, and then also the manager's manager, that can probably just like keep it contained, right?
Correct.
It's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah.
So what would Paul's rights and responsibilities be in this situation?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, so Paul has the right to fair labor practices. He has the right to basic conditions of employment as set out in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. And he also has the right, so in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, Paul has the right to refuse to comply with an instruction that is in contravention with the provisions of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act.
Wait. Hold up. An employee can refuse to do something
Yes.
if it's not part of their job, and it will be okay because the law says so?
If it's in contravention of his rights as set out in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but
Yeah.
I think then what Paul would need to do is to bring it up professionally,
Yes,
right? He can't just
correct.
throw his toys out the cart and say, no, I don't want to do this,
No,
blah, blah, blah.
definitely.
He actually would need to put out and set out reasons
Yes.
why he won't be able to do that. It's not part of my job.
Yeah.
I've my job description is this, or I'm not qualified to do what you're asking me to do.
Yes.
So I don't want to make mistakes or whatever. So he must actually just bring it up more informally, but in a more friendly manner, rather than being insubordinate, rather than sounding like he is being insubordinate, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what no means.
Yes.
the law has your back for you to be able
But
to
you still need
say
to
no
be
nicely. You still need to be professional
Yeah.
about it. And I mean, I think the law can't teach you to be professional. It's just a basic manners, right?
Yes.
Basic way of etiquette
Yeah.
and how you handle yourself as an employee. Okay. That makes sense. That
Correct.
makes sense, right? Because I was like, you can refuse. Okay,
Yeah.
but if the law does allow you to do that, obviously then you can be able to take it up in a more formal way, in a more professional manner that the business allows.
Yes.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then because we don't know the other side of the manager's version of events,
Yeah.
what would his rights and responsibilities be
Yeah.
as the manager?
So as the manager, so Paul's manager has the right to give Paul instructions which are lawful
Okay.
and reasonable. He also has the right to expect Paul to act in good faith and in the best interests of the company. Further, he has the right to expect Paul to comply with the company's rules and policies, and also with the company's set work performance standards. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And then what does Paul need to do to start the process of telling HR his side of the story? So the
Yeah.
informal part with speaking to his manager and his manager's manager, that didn't work out, or he's not happy with the outcome. What then? Like now he wants to now take it formal. Now he's going the full Monty. He's going to HR. What does he need to do to start the process? So, like, what do the company policies say, right?
Yeah. So it will depend on, like you said, what the company's policies say. So each company will have their own policies relevant to the company.
Right.
But usually there will be a grievance policy, and it will have an annexure, which is a grievance form.
Okay.
So Paul can then complete that form, setting out what happened, setting out the relief that he seeks, and then he will then have to submit that form to HR or to the relevant person in terms of the grievance policy, and he needs to make sure that he complies with the timelines is prescribed in the grievance policy for submitting the form. And then he can get the assistance of his trade union, if there's a trade union, so he can get an assistance from a trade union representative or fellow employee of his choice.
Okay, so there's a part there that I just need some clarity on. So when he fills out this form, he also needs to put there what solution he is expecting or what solution he wants out of this process.
Yes. So usually grievance forms have that option where you set out. So now that you've explained that this is what is happening, you're not happy with so and so, what then do you want from the situation? What relief is it that you seek from the situation?
Oh, okay. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So can relief ever be like money? Like, pay me, guys?
I really don't think so. I really don't think so.
And I ask that because, sometimes, as employees, we are just... If the thing says, what relief do you want? What resolution do you want to see out of it? Some people really think like, just pay me for all the pain and suffering,
Yeah.
But I guess that's going too far.
I think that's going too far. So if you're complaining about the manner in which your supervisor is treating you, perhaps then maybe you want your supervisor to change his ways of treating you, to require you to do the work that you're employed to do. Or perhaps maybe you want to be moved to a different department or work for a different supervisor. So those are all the possible relief that perhaps you could seek. But I think if we now put money, then
we're going down the wrong road.
Yeah.
Okay. I hear you. That's all we have for this segment. Thank you for tuning in to Mamolao. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell for more of this educational legal content. Make sure that you comment, guys. I want to hear from you. And also ask questions because I want to hear those too.